What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. I am your host, Mir. This podcast was launched for specifically Gen Zs and millennials to help provide you a mentorship platform so you could have a mentor in your pocket. And today I'm really excited for who our mentor is. You know, we have thousands of Gen Z's listeners come in monthly. We've brought on people like the founder of Reebok, the mayor of Miami, bringing on real life mentors to teach you how they did it and why they did it so you can have a real mentor that you might not have access to on your own. And today we have not only a good friend and a brother of mine, but an actual legend in what he's actually accomplishing now, which is Drew Valentine, who is the youngest head coach in the NCAA currently. So you heard that correctly, the youngest head coach, and he's going to tell us all about that and that journey and that process. And it's such an honor to have someone that I've known for over 4 years now and to see where he's gone and where he's continuing to go. So Drew, thank you for coming on today.
Yes, sir, Mir. It's great to be on, man. Love what you're doing with this, and definitely wish I would have had something like this when I was, trying to figure it out. And I'm still trying to figure it out. So I love listening, tapping in with you, and thanks for having me on.
Look, Drew, I really appreciate you. And it's funny you say that because the whole idea of The More We Know was launched during the pandemic when people were looking for guidance, people were losing jobs. Frankly, people didn't know what was next or what we're going to do. And then fast forward 2 years, you bring on all these different mentors and you have tens of thousands of people listening in monthly. It's people like you that continue to push and strive that forward. But for people that are listening in, man, they can look you up on Google and see who you are and what your journey is and where you're coaching, which is Loyola today. But before I get into your career, just take us a flashback that you might not find on Google. Like, where did you grow up? You know what I mean? Were your parents in the basketball world? What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. Very fortunate to have both of my parents in my life as, mentors to me and people that were doing whatever it took for me and my brother to be successful. My dad was actually a former player at Michigan State. He's from the Washington, D.C. area, but after college settled there. Once he met my mom, who was from East Lansing, Michigan, and was a teacher, second, third, first. She kind of did a little bit of it all there in the East Lansing Public School District. So my dad was a coach and personal trainer for basketball skills, and my mom was a teacher. So that was my background with my parents, and very fortunate. Even though we grew up in a small town like Lansing, Michigan, I had a lot of good people around me that pushed me to be great and believed in me.
And so when you went on in your college career, you had parents that were very supportive and you ended up obviously playing basketball too. When did you know that there was going to be a transition that you wanted to go into coaching?
So I always, kind of went through my basketball career and journey just planning on playing basketball. I never thought about what was after. Although I was in school, some of us, we just pour so much into it that I was a good student. I wasn't a bad student. I was, over, 3.0. I was, academic all league. Like I was a good student, but I kind of didn't know. There's some bunch of different things I wanted to do, whether that was broadcasting was one thing that I was interested in. And then obviously coaching was something that I was interested in just because that was my father's field as well. But really during my senior year of college is when I was like, okay, like you got to start figuring this out. And then I was like, kind of trying to do more research on some of the younger coaches that were around in the country and see how they got their career path started. And when I had the opportunity to be a graduate assistant at Michigan State after I graduated my undergrad, I knew, the people that had been through that, kind of internship program and where they had went. And so I jumped 2 feet in on that. About my senior year in college is when I knew, okay, this is what I wanted to do.
And so you go from playing basketball to becoming a graduate assistant. And when you talk about being bought into a culture and looking at things like that, a graduate assistant job isn't necessarily all just sunshine and rainbows, right? You have the opportunity to work for one of the most legendary coaches in Tom Izzo. But talk about that process. It's easy to look now and be like, oh, man, that's so dope. You're the head coach of Loyola basketball. But to go back as a graduate assistant, how did you have to be bought into the system and trust what you were doing to just come in and switch, quite frankly, from being a player to that?
Well, you got to be humble. I think even something that I always talk about with people that I want on my staff, no matter who it is, whether it's a manager, trainer, academic coordinator, obviously my assistant coaches, director of whoever it is, I want no job to be too small for you. And when you go from being a player where, everything is done for you, your meals are done for you. You don't really have to worry about travel. You just really focus on playing the games and executing a game plan. You had to go to school as well, but you're really just focused on what it takes to happen on the court. And as a graduate assistant, you have to do so many, small things. There was, during games when I was on the road, I had to be the guy to pass out towels and water and bring out the stools from from behind the bench to in front of the bench and make sure the players were there. I had to drive players to classes. I had to drive coaches to the airport. I had to do so many, almost like a free Uber, and not get paid a lot. I made $18,000 per year, my 2 years there. And you had to be enrolled in 9 credits, which was, 3 credit courses at Michigan State in graduate school, which are there about $2,000 a semester. So looking at about 12 grand, you had to use that 18 to pay for your classes with. So making $6,000 a year for 2 years, you have to, really be humbled. And so that's what I did. I locked in and did whatever I had to do to make our players be successful and our coaching staff be successful. And so that's like right now when I have, I'm obviously leading this program, and when I'm asking, the people on my staff to do whatever job it may be, I know that I'm not asking them to do something that I wouldn't do or I haven't done before. And so I think it gives me really good perspective when it comes to that.
You talk about that gives me chills, because when you think about it, it's tough to do that, to go from being a player, having everything done for you, you're the man on campus, you know what I mean, and you have managers and you have everyone doing it, to then you end up doing it, right? And so what can we do as a generation? Because if you look at us Gen Zs between 18 to 24, 25, we're a little bit entitled in the sense, if you look at social media, we want a lot of things handed to us. We don't want to really get down and grind and get our hands dirty, so to speak. What could you teach us as our mentor today to learn to be more humble and go through what you did, because you're a living story of eating those punches to get to where you got to today?
Yeah, I think, like I said, when you're in a situation, no job can be too small. I think that's the one thing, which is really just something that we talk about in our program all the time, is just no entitlement. You're not owed anything. And when you take a no entitlement approach, or no job is too small type of approach, you're grateful for everything. And you look at everything as a learning experience, and you look at it as something that's going to teach you or diversify your resume. And I think those are a really good way to look at it, especially in my field as far as coaching. But, generationally speaking, I think, one thing that Coach Izzo always told me was never take a job for money. And so after my first year as a graduate assistant, I had an opportunity to get a full-time job. So I just come from as a player, and this was before NIL, this was before cost of attendance, this was before occasional meals, and I was playing at a mid-major program. And so when I was in college, yes, I didn't come out with any debt, but it wasn't like I had any money. And so I go from that to making $6,000 as an adult, quote unquote. And that summer, going from my first year to my second year, I was offered a full-time position at another university that was going to pay me $60,000. But it wasn't an assistant coaching position. It was an off-the-road position. And I had another year to finish my master's. And Coach Izzo brought me into the office and said, is this a position that you want? And I said, well, I want to make money. That would be the main. And he goes, well, if that's your only reason, then you need to come back and finish your GA job, because if it's not what you want, why are you rushing the process or trying to skip steps? And that's something that always stuck with me. And I stuck to that as an assistant coach. I took the job at Loyola because my family was here for other reasons. My brother was in his second year with the Chicago Bulls. My mom was here full time. My family kind of went from living in Michigan to Chicago. And so we kind of made this home base. And while I've been here at Loyola, I've been offered jobs at quote unquote Power 5, Power 6 schools. And I never took those jobs because I'm happy here. I'm content here. Although I want to keep pushing our program and keep growing our program and make our program better and elevate it, I think that we have, the capability and the structure to do it here. So I'm never going to take a job for money. And I think that's a really good lesson as a mentor, and something that one of my mentors taught me, especially in my profession. And so that's something that I always share with my younger coaches on my staff as well.
I just love that you said that there, brother, because I have a mentor who's an executive at Facebook, and he reports directly into Mark Zuckerberg, and he always says, chase the freedom, not the money. And I feel like when you're looking at stuff, we get so narrow-sighted in the 1, 2, 3-year plan. We're not looking at what does the 5, 10-year plan look like. And you're a testament to that, because again, to make 18,000, subtract your classes, 6,000, and by the way, subtract taxes, you're really making 3,000 or 4,000. You're not making anything. So it's you really had to be bought into that vision. And, you, so to call it, drank the lemonade to get to where you got to. So you mentioned Izzo, who was, effectively your boss at the time. And Izzo is one of the most legendary coaches. And I just find that amazing that you got an opportunity to learn from him and learn from someone that great. What are some leadership principles that Coach Izzo instilled in you that you've taken today?
I think one of the main ones is consistency / reliability. I think as a leader, you want to be consistent and you want to be reliable. You want everybody around you to feel like they can count on you every single day. And that's the reliability piece. when you're called upon, you want to be able to answer with a high level of, successfulness, I guess you could say. And so you want to be reliable. That's one thing that he is. He is as consistent with his energy, with his focus, with his attention to detail. He's as consistent at June 1st as he is March 1st. And that's why his programs have he's turned Michigan State into, a top 5 to 10 program in college basketball. And then I think a huge one is family. Michigan State's a true family. When you look at it, the players always come back, former managers come back. It's just like a real family up there. And it's really important to him to keep things in the family. He hires all of his former players back on staff, things like that. So between consistency and reliability and then making it a family, those are a couple of things that I really enjoy, and I try to transfer into our program as well.
It's funny you say that because a couple of those things there, consistency, family is one of the reasons you had taken the job. Correct me if I'm wrong, what you said when you came to Loyola initially. Talk about that process, because you obviously have a brother who has had the chance to play in the NBA, and someone listening to this episode might have never heard of, playing basketball, or you or your brother. So talk about that elevation of success, having a family member that made it to the big league. When you're talking about statistically, you come into a league where not everyone gets a chance to do that, right? Let alone get drafted. And your brother got a chance to do both and, be an NCAA champion too. So a lot of statistics there, but what was that like, cultivating this family of excellence and culture and growing up together and then seeing him get to that?
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I said, we're very lucky and fortunate. I said at the top that we had both of our parents in our lives, and our dad was super present. And I think, as a minority, and even more importantly, as a biracial young man and young family, like, it was so important for us to see our dad, working as hard as he did and treating people the way that he treated people and impacting lives the way that he impacted lives as a coach. He taught us that work ethic, that level of commitment that's necessary to be successful, the amount of discipline that you need, sacrifice, all those lessons that you learn. He was able to do it as a dad, but also as a coach. So that's what I think, led us to being in the positions where we are. My brother just finished, his 6th year in the NBA right now, and we're from Lansing, Michigan. For us to be where we're at before, I guess I got hired before the age of 30. So for us to be where we're at before the age of 30, coming from, small Lansing, Michigan, coming from the same household is pretty, like you said, it's defying the odds. And so a lot of thanks to our parents, support system, people around us, other people, leaders, mentors that, believed in us. But it just took a really high level of, like I said, discipline, work ethic, and level of commitment to get to this point.
Yeah, look, and you and your brother beat those odds, because statistically speaking, it's tough to both accomplish what you guys did. And on that point, you are now the youngest head coach in the men's basketball in the NCAA. What does that feel like to become the youngest basketball coach in America, knowing where you come from and knowing how you grew up?
It feels great, man. It honestly feels really natural. It feels like this is what it was supposed to be. I am so grateful. I feel very blessed. I feel very honored, fortunate. I know I couldn't be here by myself. I know I couldn't be here if other people didn't really believe in me and trust in me and see what I could be. But at the same time, like, I thought this was going to happen. I kind of manifested it a lot growing up, to be successful. But once I got into the video room at Michigan State, I was, I've said this before, but I was always the guy in the back, telling everybody, when I get my program, I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to run this kind of offense, or I'm going to coach this way, or I'm going to dress a certain way. I'm going to be the coach that wears the sneakers on the sideline, like all the things that I'm going to be the coach that is giving unbelievable energy and gasses my players up and makes them feel confident, like all the things that I think I was able to, kind of implement and try to start doing this year, this past year. I think you saw that come to light. And so it feels great. It feels like I've, still got a lot of work to do. As much of an accomplishment it is to be the youngest, I think it'd be pretty cool to be, 70 and have 40 years under my belt. That's kind of, if you're doing that, then you've had a hell of a career and you're successful, and, it could be like Coach K. And so that's kind of where my mind is at, and where I want to take this thing.
A couple things about Drew that, if you know Drew personally, number one, he's one of the most humble people you'll meet. But number two, he has the most energy in the room. I had the pleasure of getting to know him. And, when I was a manager at Loyola, he would always come in with high energy, whether it was 5:30 a.m. or 5:30 p.m. You could count on Drew to have that energy. And as a coach, you need that energy. You mentioned a comment, though. You said that you were meant to get here, right? Like, you knew that this was coming. If I go back and I asked 10 years ago, Drew Valentine, you're going to be one of the youngest head coaches ever one day, would you have believed it?
Probably, man. It's crazy. As crazy as that sounds, 10 years ago, I was still playing. I probably thought I'd be in the NBA. It's crazy, but I wasn't good enough and I wasn't healthy enough. And it just wasn't in my plan. But as soon as I jumped into this coaching world, my goals went from I'm wanting to be the best player I could possibly be to being the best coach I could possibly be. And, accomplishing this and trying to elevate a program and make it one of the best programs in the country. That's exactly what I would have thought when I started this journey. And so I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I'm blessed. I'm lucky, especially as a minority. People, we don't get these kind of opportunities. And so I'm trying to do everything I can to take advantage of this and make sure that, I am a role model for the next generation. Kind of like, when I was, the video room, it was around the time that VCU was doing their thing with Shaka. And Shaka was like the young, hot minority coach. And he's been able to, be a high-level coach for, my whole time doing this now. And he's somebody that I talk to on a consistent basis now. And so doing things like that are fun for me. But I want to, continue to impact the next generation and give them confidence and give them somebody they can look to and be like, okay, that's the guy that I want to be one day.
100%. And you've done that to me early on in my career. You've challenged me when I was 19 and 18 and wide-eyed, uneducated, like Drake would say. So, you really challenged me to do that. So I know you're doing that for the next generation. Other than Coach Izzo, you had the opportunity when you came to Loyola to work with two coaches, one being Bryan Mullins, who was a previous competitor, if you will, in the Missouri Valley Conference. And then two, Coach Porter Moser, who ended up taking the job, after our Final Four run at Loyola. What was it like working with those two? And what did you learn from them that you're instilling into Loyola's culture today?
So many things. I mean, Loyola's culture is the same. It's a little bit different with me leading it, but the foundational pieces are the exact same as when Coach Moser was here. I mean, what he was able to do here is remarkable. I mean, you can just look at the trophies, all those trophies, because I don't have our trophy up from this year up right now, but all the trophies behind me are because of the work that him and his staff and the players that were here before I got to Loyola, the work that they put in, the Milton Doyles of the world, the Montel Jameses of the world, the Kiki Whites of the world. I mean, those guys really laid the foundation down, and I'm lucky to lead, and I want to continue to carry on their legacy and give them their props and give them their flowers, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. But Coach Moser, I mean, I think, humility is big with him, being grateful, being thankful. And that's something, no entitlement is something that we continue to do. High character and doing things, everything excellent, not just compartmentalizing excellence. That's what he was about. And we've continued that here. Our team GPA speaks for itself, what it was this past year. There's just so many, the way that we play unselfishly on the court, the way that we communicate on the court to one another, just everything that we do within the program with the amount of energy and focus, the way that we scout with the attention to detail and try to game plan. Everything is based on his foundations. And so there is no Drew Valentine without Porter Moser. Loyola Chicago is not what it is today without Porter Moser. So forever, eternally grateful for him, and really grateful for Bryan Mullins as well, who's, a great friend, somebody I speak to all the time to this day. Bryan really showed me how to be an assistant that's about to be a head coach or wants to be a head coach. He truly felt like a head coach every single day. And it was amazing to me because I had these wild dreams and visions for being a head coach one day, but I really didn't know until I was around Bryan. His attention to detail, how hard he worked in scouting, how hard he worked in recruiting, or how he kept the staff organized, the relationships he kept with the players. There was just so many things, how much Bryan poured in to the program to just help Porter elevate the program. It was just amazing to me. And so I learned a lot from him. He really helped me be prepared for this moment, taking this job as a head coach. Coach Moser's legacy forever lives on. So love those guys. They're great friends. We talk all the time, and I wouldn't be here without either of them.
100%. And it's obvious that legacy is living on. Look at what you've accomplished already, just starting your career and starting your job as head coach, where Loyola's gone already. A 15 or 16-year-old might be listening to this. And again, shout out to Coach Moser and Coach Mullins. Let's say a 15 or 16-year-old is listening to this. What does Drew Valentine look for when he's recruiting kids, right? Like, what do you look for? What's the DNA? We can all look at the 5-star rankings on ESPN and all that, but what are you really looking for?
100% right. I think the first one is obvious, the talent. I'd be lying. I think a lot of coaches just talk about character, but you got to be a good player too. So some things that make you good enough for us is obviously size and athleticism. Those two things, you got to have some sort of physical presence and some sort of athleticism. But then after that, it's so much more. your skill level. We really like skilled players here. Shooting is at a premium in basketball right now. When you look at the way that the NBA is, the way that, it's played at the highest level is what, everybody kind of copies. And that's exactly how we play. I can't sell somebody a dream that I'm going to try to do everything I can to get you prepared for the NBA, but not play an NBA style system. And so I want to recruit players that are highly skilled, that can shoot the ball, that can think the game, that have a good feel, that can make passes, that are unselfish, that compete really hard on the court, that want to win, guys that want to be professionals. I mean, all those things that kind of go into it. And then also the academic piece, because Loyola is not the easiest school to be a part of and attend. And we have certain academic requirements that you have that are a little bit more strenuous than the normal school. And so I look for academics. And then the last thing I would say would be like your family on top of that. With, obviously I talked about character within the skill level and all that, but the last thing would be like your family and just making sure you come from the right kind of people that are going to be having good influence on you, because it's very easy to get sidetracked. It's very easy to get distracted by uneducated people. But if you've got people with the right intent behind you that are pushing you to do the right thing, then you'll stay focused and goal driven and fit right in here. So obviously some combination of skill and talent, length, athleticism, overall talent mixed in with your character and skill level as far as on the court, then obviously academics, and then we look at your family as well.
And how do you differentiate from a culture carrier versus a culture detractor? Because someone can be extremely talented, but they can come and be detrimental to a culture. And that might not even just be for basketball. That could be in the corporate world too. But how do you differentiate from that?
Well, I think a very easy thing for me is when an initial phone conversation, if your focus is, if your reasons for why you're choosing a specific school is all about you, if it's, man, I want to go to a school where the coach is going to let me play my game, or the coach is going to get me to the league, or if that's more what you're about, versus if I'm calling a young man as prospect and he's saying, man, coach, I want to go somewhere where I can be a part of a great culture. I want to go somewhere where, I have the opportunity to play, because I think we all want to play, where I have the opportunity to play, but I'm more, interested in the process and how we go about things, the kind of players that I'm going to play with on the team. I want to get a good education. I want to set myself up for life after basketball. Like, if your mind is more there, then I think you fit in with the culture, what we have here, versus if you're just worried about yourself or what the coach can do for you. So, and then when people come on visits here, if they're treating people with respect, if they've got a good energy to them, positive energy, or if they're quiet and, got their hood on, sitting on their phone the whole time, like they're probably just self-absorbed. So those are kind of two ways where you can kind of find people that are going to fit your culture or not.
Yeah, that's a ton of gems from you right there, and it goes down more from talent, and your energy is red, and people could see that. So thank you for giving the gems right there. Now I want to dive into a little bit as we get into the closing parts of it for people that are listening in. When you look at culture, and I bring up culture so much because that's something we used to always talk about at Loyola, and I know it's something that you always talk about too with your players today. Culture is something that's so important, and to compete at a high level, you got to have a high level of culture and values. And when you look at even a team like the Boston Celtics, statistically, they might not be player for player the best team, right? If you look at LeBron James and Russell Westbrook, statistically, those guys are all-stars, just player for player. If you put them in open gym, they'll kill it. But you see where Boston's at today on a high level, competing with a strong culture, strong coach, and they're all bought in. Give us some insight into what you're doing now, especially we lose some great seniors. We lose Ahir Agoak, we lose Lucas Williamson. What are you doing to build that strong foundation, that same culture that has just been developed over the last 4 years, and doing it again now?
Yeah, I think the first thing you got to do is build those relationships with the players so that you can communicate with them. I think you have to spend time with them working on their individual games and trying to make them feel like you've got their back. So whether that's spending time with them off the floor or spending time with them in the gym, you want to build that connection with them where you can communicate to them on the court and get after them, but they're going to know that you've got their back. The second thing is we've had, 4 or 5 team meetings. We've had 4 guest speakers come in already. We've had a couple team meetings after those speakers and kind of talking about culture and the why behind, kind of the takeaways or the why of, what makes people successful. So that's what we've done so far. We've also shown videos of the team in previous years and why they've been successful with how they've played on the court, offensively and defensively. And then we've also kind of had our returning guys speak about how invested the group was before and then where those guys are at now. When you look at it here, Lucas, those guys in particular that were just here, they're doing great right now. They're crushing it. And it's because of how all in that they were. And it wasn't they were this 20-point scorer. Or they were team first guys. And so the combination of building relationships with the new players, letting them, working with them on the court, making them feel valued and like you like their games and want to help them get better, mixing in some outside people to kind of deliver similar messages, and then, really just diving in with video and having conversations about, what your DNA is, what has gone into making the program so successful.
Now, that was some remarkable insight, just gems that people can take for culture building across the board and getting people in the room and getting people to buy into that vision. It's twofold. It goes back to your other point about when you're recruiting, you're starting at that foundation, right? You're looking for people that are bought in initially. You look at things even if they're on their phone, they're on their hoodie, or even what they're posting on social media. You can find out things about someone, and it sounds like you start at that core and you build it to where you do now, and you're going to repeat that culture building there. So as a coach, you have to be an extremely positive guy, of course. You have to push the mountain. You have to push the team. You're coaching them through good, bad, and ugly. But, talk about negativity-wise, if it's a specific situation or in general. I'm curious how Drew Valentine deals with setbacks, failures, negativity. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's natural to get down on yourself and doubt yourself. I think it's very natural to do that. So there's two things that we do within our program. We have outside resources we have three outside resources for our young men. First thing that we do is we use a company called Profile with Chad Brown. He's the president, CEO, founder of it. And you really, with Profile, it's not just a personality test. It's a, behavioral assessment. It allows our young men to understand why their brain thinks the way it does. It allows them to understand themselves and then their teammates and then their coaches on a deeper level. So it gives you a better understanding of when you're going through a tough time of why you feel a certain way, or it allows you to other people that are within this inner circle to kind of know why you might be feeling a certain way. The next thing is we have weekly meetings with our mental performance coach. His name is Russ Rauch. He's also the mental performance coach for the Miami Heat, who have one of the best cultures in the NBA. And Russ meets with our team and our staff each once a week. And then he'll also meet with guys individually, kind of case-by-case basis. And then we also have a mental health professional counselor who will meet with our guys individually to give us techniques. So I'm really big on the mental health side of things. And I think, again, when you're spending time with people within your program, to help them feel valued and like you want to work with them and help them be a better player, but you're also giving them resources and people to communicate with to help them feel better. I think that's a really good kind of combination of making somebody be healthy mentally. So that's kind of a little bit of what we do here at Loyola.
I'm just glad that even on the aspect of mental health, that's something that's so important. And, you see guys in the league now opening up more about something that traditionally was a little more taboo if you look 5 years ago. So the fact that you guys have those resources, it's amazing to have that. And thanks for sharing that insight within the audience here. Now, as we conclude here, I'm just curious, Drew, what keeps you up at night, if anything?
Being great. I think I want to be great more than I want to win or lose. I don't know. Just like when you taste success, it can either do two things to me. What I've seen is it can make people feel like they've arrived and make them less hungry, or it can drive you to be more hungry and want even more success and want to continue to feel those things. And when I have success, it makes me want to feel more. And so that's where I'm at, man, is just wanting to sustain and elevate and keep growing and wanting to cut down nets and hoist trophies and have those moments, bus rides and locker room celebrations where I'm getting water poured on me with the team. Those are the moments that I want to continue to have. So, and then I would also say, in addition to that, making sure that my daughter grows up better than I did. And she's already off to an incredible start, growing up way different with some of the things she's already been able to do in a year than me, wanting to make her grow up different and live different. So those two things.
Amen to that. And Drew's not only a full-time coach, but he's also a full-time father, which is a whole nother job in itself. So shout out to you being able to do that, brother. No, I appreciate that. And I think that's just great insight overall. And I just think overall from the conversation, when you go from culture to motivation to just keeping it very real with the audience, that's something that the listeners can really appreciate there. The last question I'd have for you is, you're just graduating college, you're 21, take sports, take basketball out of it. what's the best piece of advice you can give someone to go win at their life, right? You're playing a long game right now. It doesn't matter if you win one game in your conference. You still want to get to the tournament. It doesn't matter if you get to the tournament because you want to win the tournament. So there's a long game in this. What advice can you give us on this long game and graduating college and trying to win at life?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you got to do what makes you happy and not take a job for money, because if you're really passionate about something, it's going to lead to more. It just is. Like if you're really passionate about painting, there's ways to make millions of dollars painting. If you're really good at it and you know how to, and you want to market it and there's no matter what kind of field or direction you go down, there's a way to become a superstar in it if you are super passionate about it and you're good at it. Probably the combination of those two things. So don't worry about playing it safe. Every single person, Mir, this, there's so many people. I think you post about it all the time, like what, Jeff Bezos or, people with the jobs that they had at 21, 22. What I'm doing right now is, I know it's pretty crazy. I knew I wanted to be successful. I didn't know how successful I would be. But, like I said, I turned down the first time I could have really made some for real money to grind it out and not make money again for a year because that wasn't the right fit for me. So never take a job for money and find your passion and it's better to do your passion at 21, 22 rather than do something you're not passionate about and then wait till you're 30 with a family and then be not happy for the rest of your life. So do something and do it all with passion, do it all with intensity, and whatever you do, like no job can be too small.
I'm just humbled, honored, and grateful for that advice because, like I said, we brought on a lot of people on this show, from mayors to billion-dollar business people, and it seems like there's this trend of just doing what you're happy. And, to your point, Jeff Bezos says to be stubborn on the vision, but flexible in the details. And it looks like that's what you've done throughout your career. You've always been stubborn on the vision of, what you want to succeed, what type of elevation you want, but you've been flexible and going through these different paths, and success is not linear. And I just think I appreciate that about you, being very honest and helping the audience understand, because a lot of us are not happy in the jobs we're doing today. And, for you to give us that advice and to have the accolades you do today, I just got to give you your flowers. So thanks for doing that and taking that time.
Of course, man. Yeah, no, it's like I said, obviously I'm a listener myself, so I appreciate you having me on and appreciate you doing this. This is great. If I can ever be of any help to anybody, man, hit me up.
Drew, tell them where they can follow you on social media.
Both Twitter and Instagram. I don't have anything else. Twitter and Instagram at Coach Drew LU. Coach Drew and DREW, not DRU. So DREW and then just LU.
And then I'll put all that in the descriptions below. You guys definitely got to go follow him and his journey and everything he's doing. And where can we buy tickets or get ready to gear up for the fall season?
Yeah, just Loyola. I think it's like LUC tickets, something like that. I don't know exactly where to buy it, but if you just look up Loyola Chicago tickets, they're fairly easy to get, and it's one of the best game day atmospheres I've ever been in. And obviously we're Chicago, if you got especially afternoons throughout the year, we normally play afternoon games, not even night games, Saturday afternoon. Come up here to the north side, have you some fun, get you a beverage or 2, 3, and cheer the Ramblers on in Gentile Arena. It's a great game day atmosphere.
Having been there for 4 years and actually going to games for 6 years, you guys definitely have to go out there, enjoy the time, and walk by the water after. It's just a beautiful, phenomenal campus. And no better way than to go watch, my brother and friend here, Drew Valentine, who's going to be crushing it as a coach this year. We look forward to watching you. That is Drew Valentine, who is the youngest basketball coach in college basketball today. I'm getting chills and just excited to see where you go next and what your history looks like and what the rest of your story looks like. So thanks, Drew.
Appreciate you having me on, Mir.